Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show for you today. It's some troubling times in our grand old USA, and there's excuse me, no way to really sugarcoat it. We are struggling in this country right now. And we're actually, this experiment that I talk about all the time, we're not too far from potentially losing it. And these stories that I'm about to talk about will show you exactly what I mean. We're going to start in Seattle. The president said in a tweet that domestic terrorists have literally taken over Seattle. Certainly certain sections of it, and we'll expand on that in just a moment. And then you knew it was coming. A CNN correspondent actually said that the Washington and Jefferson memorials and others like them need to come down. The Washington Memorial needs to be torn down, I guess, brick by brick. Maybe you could use a specialty brick to throw it through your window or something. But the memorials must be taken down. And then there is good news. President Trump has officially announced where he's going to hold his first rally, and that is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But we start in Seattle. Trump blasts radical left Dems in Seattle, says domestic terrorists take hold of city. This is a Fox News article we're using. President Trump tweeted late Wednesday that domestic terrorists have taken over an area in Seattle amid George Floyd protests and blamed the city's radical left Democrats for contributing to the unrest. Well, there's no question about that. We're going to show you a video in just a moment where literally you had and the video doesn't show quite this, where you have a city councilwoman, a Democrat from Seattle, literally let protesters with her own key in the back door of City Hall so they could bum rush the city commission building and led a march on City Hall. This is an actual Seattle city council member opening up the gate, so to speak, to let protesters bum rush the building. And this video you're going to see is the aftermath of letting them in. And you can't even see the city commission hardly for the number of protesters. And basically what they're shouting, it's kind of hard to tell, but they're shouting about the mayor of Seattle, who's a Democrat and a very progressive Democrat to boot. They all are, and shouting that the mayor has to go. Check this out. You get the picture. And what you don't really see in that particular video is the city councilwoman, and I think I got her name further. Her name is Kashima Sawant. Last name spelled Sawant. She's leading the chants there. So I asked this question, and I don't ask it really with any sarcasm. What is next? Are we going to have vigilante mobs? Are we going to have vigilante justice? The Congress is pushing forward this anti-lynching bill, like lynching is a big issue, and maybe they're onto something there, because lynching could come back. And I'm not talking about black lynching. I'm talking about just lynching in general, because when you had vigilante mob justice in the Old West, that's what happened. A person would be arrested, and they'd have one sheriff, so to speak, or one deputy, and, the town would show up with 30 to 50 or 100 people with pitchforks, literally a rope and torches. And what was the one deputy supposed to do? And so they would hang people, vigilante justice, sometimes groups of people. And it wasn't about race per se. It was about their idea of lawlessness and everything else. So what is actually next? You just drag that mayor out and shoot her or hang her or run her over with a car? I mean, what? pelt her to death with rocks? I mean, we're seeing some of that already. So I asked that, but really it is a real concern, is it not? Because that is where we're heading. If we keep allowing these things to happen, that, make no mistake, we're going to give in to the mob, and that is what's going to happen. And one day, some of you liberals out there might be thinking, oh, well, maybe this is the good thing, the Black Lives Matter. One day, they might actually come for you because they're coming for this mayor, and you probably couldn't find a more progressive liberal mayor than the one in Seattle. She's are letting their town be taken over. So, I think it's a legitimate question. President Trump tweeted out, radical left governor at Jay Inslee and the mayor of Seattle are being taunted and played at a level that our great country has never seen before. He went on to tweet, take back your city now. If you don't do it, I will. This is not a game. These ugly anarchists must be stopped immediately. Move fast. And he put all of that in capital letters. Now, the president is in a tough situation. And I fully believe him when he says he's prepared to act. And you could turn around and say he should act. But keep in mind, and I'm not saying that he shouldn't act, so hear me out on this. The political figures, the Democratic Party out in Seattle and across the nation, they want him to act. One of the reasons why the Seattle City Commission and the mayor and the governor of Washington won't act on these things. One of them, they don't know what to do and they're afraid. And it's hard when you have no principles. It's really hard to stand on something that you don't even know that's an ever shifting situation. But make no mistake about it. Part of the reason they don't respond is a tactical political reason, because they want President Trump to call out the National Guard or to, say that there's insurrection, which is, there is insurrection. We're going to prove it here in just a moment. But they want President Trump to react so they can use that to take him down. So make no mistake about it. He is in a tough position. But keep in mind, Democrats have sent federal troops into states before, and probably rightfully so. Back during the civil rights movement, when Alabama famously would not let blacks, after it was shown that, or it was ruled by the Supreme Court that they had to open up their public universities to black students, refused to do it. George Wallace refused to do it. And what happened? Kennedy sent the troops in there, right? And then in Arkansas, a very similar situation. So it has happened before. And so if it's all about the states and they refuse to do something, isn't President Trump right to send in the troops now? Because you could say, oh, well, it's much different because it was, civil rights issue. Blacks weren't allowed to go to school, which I agree. They should be allowed to go to school. And I don't have a problem with what happened in the South then, forcing open the gates of the University of Alabama, by the way. I don't have an issue. I think it's something to be actually celebrated. But in the same token, you cannot have police precincts overrun and burned to the ground. You cannot have wide swaths, or any swath for that matter, of your city flying a flag other than the United States of America. And we're going to get into that in just a moment. But that's what's happening out in Seattle now. Black Lives Matter groups, assisted probably by Antifa, have taken over parts of Seattle and basically made it a no-go zone. So if you're not going to send in the feds then maybe they should never be sent in. His tweet, talking about the president, his tweet did not go unanswered. Mayor Jenny Durkham, who they were chanting against there, a Democrat, took a swipe at Trump and responded, "Make us all safe. Go back to your bunker. Hashtag Black Lives Matter." Now, she's pushing Black Lives Matter, and they're trying to push her out. So it's just absolutely crazy. I want to talk a bit about this Black Lives Matter issue because, and I know this is getting people fired and all this kind of stuff and banning of people for advertising and all. Well, one, I don't have any advertisers, as you can see right now. I hope to get some they could try to ban and put pressure on in the not too distant future. But I'm just going to say it. that Black Lives Matter issue. Now, I believe that Black lives do matter. I don't believe in the organization as it's currently functioning. I do believe that all lives matter. American lives matter. So if you're going to condemn me for saying that, then go ahead, I suppose. But let me ask you, if you're for Black Lives Matter, the organization, or let me back up, the concept of Black Lives Matter, and I'm not really talking about the organization, but that the fact that people of color's lives matter. Let me ask you, is the actual hashtag Black Lives Matter group helping or hurting you when they do some of the things they do? Remember these videos from just barely a year ago, where this is actually the group Black Lives Matter chanting things that are, just hard to believe that it actually happened in this country, but it did. Play the video.
Oh, it's just horrible. And now even
it is just horrible. And they also, remember, chanted no borders, no walls, no USA at all. And I've been telling you for the longest time, one thing about progressives, and in a sense, I'm glad they do this, because you can take them at their word. You don't have to wonder what these hardcore leftists want. They'll tell you, and I'm telling you, sadly so, take them at their word. Because when they say that they want, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. I take them at their word. They've shown that. And they don't care what color they are. They want police officers to die. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. They want police officers to die. And so when you're supporting the actual group, Black Lives Matter, then you are in fact supporting what they are chanting. I mean, just no other way around it. So, this whole idea of a standard, double standard, I've been telling you there's only one standard, a standard that Trump supporters are held to, conservatives in general, Republicans, they're held to a standard. I'm certainly probably held to a standard. But the Black Lives Matter, they're not held to a standard, but by God, we need to hold them one and simply take them at their word. And one of the things I talked a lot about last year is that chant, no borders, no walls, no USA at all. Because if we have no border and no wall, we will have no USA at all. And if they get their wish and the cops get fried like bacon, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. Take them at their word. And so if you're supporting them, if you're a Hollywood star supporting them, if you're NASCAR now that's supporting them, if you're the NFL that's supporting them, then why aren't you held to a standard that you are supporting? And everybody who says that they support Black Lives Matter, the actual organization, should be asked, do you support? And then run that video where it is the organization, there's no disputing it. They were shouting, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. And you should be made to ask. They should ask NASCAR. They should ask the Hollywood people. They should ask anybody who supports them and gives them money, do you support dead cops right now? Because that's what they're saying. And I am willing, more than willing, because I've seen the evidence of taking them at their word. Hundreds of protesters stormed Seattle City Hall Tuesday night. We showed you the video, to demand Durkin's resignation just days after seizing a 6-block downtown zone. It's up to 7 now, I understand. That includes a shuttered police precinct. Listen to this description. This is happening in an American city. The Black Lives Matter is seizing a 6-block downtown, now it's 7, zone that includes a shuttered police precinct. Demonstrators, and I'm going to address this specifically in just a moment. Demonstrators remain peaceful without reports of violence or injuries, but are pushing Durkin to step down if she refuses to defund the city's police department. Let me just tell you, this idea, let me read this part one more time. Demonstrators remain peaceful. No, they are not peaceful. And I'm not saying they're throwing bricks through windows or burning or hurting anybody right now. But intimidation is not peaceful. When you go down and basically have a mob that is shouting down a city commission that can't even function, a mayor that's probably on their side, is on their side, that's intimidation. That is not peaceful. When you blockade, and they're actually using blockades to cordon off a street, a 7-block area, and determine who can go there and who cannot, that by its very nature is not peaceful. Intimidation is not peaceful. That would be like saying that the police officers, going back to some of the marches back in the 60s and 70s, where the police officers had dogs, at people, that only if you release the dog is it actual violence against peaceful protesters. But having the dog there with the face shield on, that's intimidation. That's why they did it. So that is not peaceful. And I'm not condoning what the police did in many instances back in the 60s. I'm just saying that you don't have to punch me in the face to be violent. If you don't allow me to go somewhere, if you intimidate me and my family where we can't peacefully walk anywhere in the United States of America, then you are taking my rights away, and that is not only an injustice, but it is a violent injustice nonetheless. House Judiciary Committee member Matt Gaetz, a hero of mine from Florida, love Matt Gaetz, told Hannity on Wednesday that Antifa has now designated Seattle their capital. And that's true. Really, I mean, by action. They did the same thing. We showed video multiple times where they attacked Andy No, a reporter, and literally almost killed the dude for simply photographing them. They took over a federal building rented out by ICE and held hostages and everything else. And we didn't do anything about it, really. But it says Antifa now designated Seattle their capital after the protesters declared a 6-block, as I tell you, 7-block now, around a precinct, a cop-free zone. So they have taken it upon themselves to literally say cops cannot go into a 7-block area of a major city in the United States of America. In the United States of America, a cop-free zone. Do you support that, Democrats? Because it seems like you do. And, you can say all you want. Oh, I'm not for defunding the police. But are you supporting this? Because that's not let me just say it again, because I'll probably say it more than once. That is not a peaceful protest. If you withhold public safety officials, from coming in an area, that is not a peaceful protest. That is a violent protest because you're denying me my basic civil rights. You have no right to deny me my God-given rights, period. That's where you want to know where you draw the line? That's it. My dad used to say, I got the freedom to swing my arm all I want, but if I hit you with that, then I lose that freedom right there because I have no right to invade your space, so to speak, and they are invading multiple people's spaces. And besides, even if I never go back to Seattle again, the fact that you can take over a 7-block area in a city in the United States is a direct threat to me in my city, because if it can happen there, it can happen anywhere. So a threat against one American like that is a threat against all of us. The Seattle Times, regardless of skin color. The Seattle Times reported Wednesday that the area in the Capitol Hill section of the city has been called Chaz, and it is free of uniformed police. I guess there may be undercover people there. The paper reported that listen to this now, the paper reported that the nearby police precinct that was shuttered during the protest had a sign on Tuesday that read, "This space is now property of the Seattle people." The Seattle people. So it doesn't belong to the United States of America anymore. And they're flying different flags up there than the U.S. flag. If they're flying a U.S. flag, it's probably been desecrated, turned upside down, burned, something to that amount. But this is just, it's sad, and it makes me angry. And I can't hear I hear you saying, what do we want? Dead cops, when do we want them now? I hear that. But your peaceful message, if you have one, I can't hear it when we're under threat like this. I just can't, you know. And I shouldn't be surprised. And you want to know if Democratic leaders actually support this? Go back to essentially a year or two ago. We're going to play a video. Andrew Cuomo talking about, I know you've probably heard this, but we can't hear it enough. And the guy who's supposed to be the guy that most Democrats really want to run for president said America was never that great. Listen to him, and I want to make a comment about it. Check it out.
We're not going to make America great again. It was never that great. We have not reached greatness.
That's good enough. He goes on to talk about greatness. That's all right. I don't want to hear no more from him. But let me just tell you, for Andrew Cuomo to say that is totally ridiculous. On the face of it, not only just the absolute slap in the face it is to everyone who has shed blood for this country, of all colors, by the way, but Andrew Cuomo, the Cuomo story in and of itself, whether you like him, hate him, or whatever, doesn't matter. His story, his family story, is a testament to the greatness of America. I mean, his forefathers came over here as Italian immigrants. They weren't treated necessarily the best in the world. And they rose all the way up to, he's a second generation governor in his family. His brother, because his father was governor, had a chance at one point to actually become president of the United States. I mean, and his brother is one of the highest paid TV personalities there is out there. You don't have to like them. I'm simply saying that the Cuomo family story is a testament to the greatness of America. So for him to actually say that, and he knows that, he's no dummy. He knows that. He knows that his story is a testament to, but he's playing politics. He's fanning the flames. So is it any wonder that this guy who's supposed to be the new standard bearer of the Democratic Party said that and gets away with it? Because the Democrats, let me just tell you, Democrats, and I'm not talking about all Democrats, but you're elected, and I'm just saying this as someone who used to love the Democratic Party, fought hard in the Democratic Party, had a long history, family history in the Democratic Party. It saddens me to say this, but the Democratic Party of JFK that literally sent federal troops into Alabama to open it up to people of color, black people principally, could go to school like they should have been. That party, if you loved JFK, that party is dead. It's dead and gone. Because remember what he said famously? Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Now that same Democratic Party is basically condoning taking over a U.S. City, flying a different flag, saying America has never been great, now desecrating monuments of all kinds, and basically saying that the Washington Monument, we're going to talk about that more in a minute, and the Jefferson Memorial need to be obliterated. They want to do away with the police in general. I mean, what else can you say? The Democratic Party, as it's currently construed, is out to destroy America. There's just I don't see how you could argue against that. I'm not saying all Democrats. I'm saying your dadgum leaders at the top are desecrating everything that made this country the greatest experiment, the greatest country on earth, period. Is it perfect? No. You know why? Because it's filled with human beings that are imperfect, that fall short of the glory. That's always going to be the case. Everywhere you have the human equation, it's a mixed bag. And there are going to be people who take advantage of things and are evil and all that. I don't think it's 15% like Joe Biden says, but there are a percentage of people around the world, and certainly in this country, and we're all imperfect, but that have evil intent. And I believe when you bum rush a neighborhood, when you take over that neighborhood, when you bum rush a city commission meeting and all that, you have evil intent. I'm just saying it like it is, man. It ain't about color to me. It's about the color of your heart. And there's a lot of darkness, like that Archbishop wrote to the president. There's a lot of darkness out there right now. There's plenty of light, too. It's just sometimes hard to see. Assistant Chief Dina Nolette, Assistant Chief of Police, said barriers were removed from the front of the precinct, talking about this neighborhoods that are this blocks that are cordoned off, after it became a flashpoint between officers and protesters. Police have also remained scarce in that area in the several nights since protests have continued peacefully. And I'm going to call it out once again. There's no such thing as a peaceful protest if you violate my civil rights in the process. It is not peaceful. If I cannot freely walk anywhere in this God-given country of the United States of America, you are violating my civil rights. If you can take over a 7-block area of a city in the United States, whether I ever go there or not, I have been there. Seattle was once one of the most beautiful cities on the planet. But if I can't go there, whether I go there or not, if you can take over a U.S. city, any portion of it, and fly a flag other than the United States of America flag, it is a violation of my civil rights in the little town of Hawthorne, Florida, whether you come to my home or not. This is our home, as imperfect as it may be. It is not peaceful to intimidate people, period. Taking over portion of America City is not peaceful. But, you know, like I say, they may ban advertisers. They may ban things. They're trying to pick on old Tucker Carlson. I got to give old Tucker credit, man. He is really, really standing up, and he's certainly risking a lot. There's no question about that. And they're out to get him. Remember, they peacefully protested at his house to the point that his wife had to lock herself up in the pantry because she thought her life was being threatened. They were literally, Black Lives Matter was the group, and Antifa. They were literally kicking the man's door down. Peaceful. We are dedicated. This is what this assistant chief said. We are dedicated to working with peaceful protesters on the way to move forward. There's a whole citywide effort to try to identify who the leaders are. It's hard to tell who they are with the mask, right? It's just a matter of establishing a dialogue so we can take down the plywood and welcome people back into the community. So they're so peaceful, they got to take down the plywood. Let me tell you, didn't we used to have a policy that we don't negotiate with terrorists? I guarantee you that city commissioner, and I think every police officer too, I know I did it when I was mayor of Hawthorne, we take an oath to the Constitution, not just of our state, but of the nation, and we say we're going to protect it against enemies, both foreign and domestic. You want to know what domestic terrorism looks like? This is what it looks like. This is This is not the first time that Trump, according to this article, has called out state and city leadership in dealing with protests. He's mainly calling, they keep putting this, they keep conflating protesters, peaceful protesters, the term mostly peaceful protest. Well, when you hear that term, mostly peaceful protest, it means somebody got hurt or something got burned or both. It mostly means it just does. It's sad. Last month, while looting and arson raged in Minneapolis, so here's the thing. Listen to this again. I want to read this together because this article is mocking itself and they don't even know it. It says, this is not the first time that Trump has called out state and city leadership in dealing with protests. Then they go on to say, last month, while looting and arson raged in Minneapolis, Trump tweeted. So they're saying peaceful protests at the same time they're saying he tweeted while the city was being looted and burned. But Trump tweeted, I can't stand back and watch. He tweeted this, as the article says, while Minneapolis was burning. I can't stand back and watch this happen to a great American city, Minneapolis. A total lack of leadership, either the very weak radical left mayor, we saw just how weak he was, Jacob Fry, get his act together and bring the city under control, or I will send in the National Guard and get the job done right. This is leadership. He's trying to, the governors won't act, the mayors won't act. He has the duty. One of the president's chief duty is to protect the citizens of the United States, period, against enemies both foreign and domestic. If you can't walk through your neighborhood, you're being terrorized. If your life's dream, I don't care what color you are, many of them were black, by the way, and your life's dream and ambition, your American dream was your business, and it got burned to the dadgum ground, it's not mostly peaceful. That is domestic terrorism, and the president is right to do it. And standing up, this shows you just how crazy it has gotten. Standing up for what is right now, calling them out, like me saying that Black Lives Matter, I'm talking about the organization is and it seems to have become a terrorist organization, is somehow racist. Speaking the truth is racist. For President Trump to say we can't have looting and rioting in the streets, and you can't have groups take over blocks of an American street is racist. It's racist for him to say that. It just, you talk about what they call bass backwards or something, man. It's crazy where we are right now. If you speak the truth, you're a racist. If you call out violence, I mean, it's just, up is down, down is up. It's just, it's bizarro world. Like on Seinfeld, that's what's happening right now. And we are letting it happen if we don't speak out. If we don't have the courage to speak out. For instance, I don't expect everybody to speak out the way I do. And heaven knows tomorrow they may cut me off of this thing for speaking out. But that's where you come in. Not everybody can be a soldier on the front lines. And I'm not comparing what I'm doing to a soldier that's actually in under the gun, so to speak. But I am a fighter. Not everybody can be a fighter. I can't even run anymore, so this is about the only way I can really fight. I can barely walk sometimes. So, but fighters need supporters. So you can share this show, other shows like it. You can, watch like Tucker Carlson and what advertisers he has and patronize them. You can let others know that have been doing all kind of stupid stuff that you're not going to patronize them. Maybe it's time to turn NASCAR off, And I'm not even getting into the whole controversial about the rebel flag. My thing is, why, unless you're going to have a policy that says you can only fly the American flag, then I really don't want to hear it. Because, if a Black Lives Matter flag can be flown now, but a Confederate one can't. It's about freedom to me. I'm not a big, if you know me, people who know me personally, I'm not a big, Confederacy. I'm just not. I'm a Civil War buff to a certain extent because I love history. I got, stuff, remnants from family members of mine that you could say, yeah, fought on the wrong side of the war, maybe. Because in a sense, because they, anyway, we don't need to get into all that. But to me, it's about freedom. Freedom. So, the idea that you can't wave, if you can wave one flag, you should be able to wave them all. So to me, and study our here, we're going to talk more about that in a minute. I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. Trump appears, excuse me, I get all choked up about this because I love America. Trump appears intent on positioning himself as the law and order candidate in 2020. There's a push among some Democrats to defund police, which has put Joe Biden in a tough position. Joe Biden is in a tough position anyway, trying to bring together the moderates, there are none, of the party and liberals about the best approach to policing. Let me tell you, you're being played. If you get lost up in this defund the police, you're getting played. Because the real question, and I've talked about this the last several days, check out our podcast. You can go to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, share it with others. You can go to our YouTube channel now, John Martin Talks, spell it all out. You can go to any of the networks and that America's Voice News is on. They got a free app, Android, iPhone, Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV, Dish Network, Channel 219. People tell me they've been watching me on Pluto Network. You can see our show, and it's archived on America's Voice News as well. But I've been telling you about this defund the police. Don't get sidetracked in that. The real thing that the Democrats are pushing kind of secretly is doing away with qualified immunity, which means police officers, in a sense, could be sued on a daily basis personally, not the department, but personally, which means that there would be no more police officers. That's what it means. And if you want to know more about it, look it up, check it out. If you message me, I don't want to waste too much more time on it, but I'm going to keep bringing it up. Qualified immunity is vital to government officials, but especially police officers. Do away with that. And that's what the Democrats are pushing, including Joe Biden. And you do away with police departments. There'll be no police departments to defund. It's simple as that. Biden says, well, I think there are a lot. He was interviewed on that Daily Show, I guess, Trevor, whatever his name is now. Biden said, well, I think there are a lot of changes that can take place, period, without having to defund the police completely. So, they didn't follow up with this. But so I would ask Joe, how much should you defund the police? If not completely, how much? Because so is he saying police officers are being overpaid? Because keep in mind, the vast majority of the money in any police budget is for personnel. It's not for vehicles and equipment and all that. That is a much smaller portion. The vast majority is for police officers. How much are police officers? I'd like to ask Joe Biden, do you think police officers are being overpaid if you want to cut any money from them? Because what do you think the average salary in the United States of America is for an entry-level police officer? Now, I know in some places it's vastly different, but the average starting pay for a police officer in the United States of America is $31,965. So, Joe, how much lower should we go? I mean, I can't even imagine. It's hard for me to imagine being a police officer. And let me just tell you right out, thank you. I appreciate police officers. But I don't think I would go face what they face for $32K. I mean, give me a break, man. So, it's just amazing that I don't see how, if you're a Democrat out there right now, a Democrat voter, I just want to talk to you. If you're a Democrat voter out there, can you back any of this? You can hate Donald Trump all you want, but can you back defunding the police? Can you back letting them be sued to the point of oblivion? Can you back an American city having blocks taken over by thugs? I'm just going to call them that, domestic terrorists. Can you support that? I don't care what color you are. If you bleed red, white, and blue, if you're an American patriot, a citizen, if you're a Democrat, how can you put up with that? Please respond on whatever Facebook page you're listening to, because I'd like to hear you. I don't want to hear a bunch of negative Donald Trump stuff, okay? I understand that. I get it. And I'm not saying that you don't have a right to say that, but defend what the Democrats are doing, actually doing and promoting without mentioning Donald Trump's name. Just tell me what you're proud of about the Democratic Party. I want to hear it. Because every time I challenge a Democrat, all they respond back is negative Trump stuff. They never defend what's happening. So I'm asking you Democrats out there, if you're thinking about voting for Joe Biden, you're voting for all of this stuff to be in America. It's hard for me to believe anyone could vote for that. All right, we're going to move on. Check my time. I got long on that, but that's a passionate issue for me. And this one is too. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm choked up about it. Pisses me off. This is a CNN. It's from Real Clear Politics, but it's about a CNN anchor, Angel Rye, R-Y-E, I think it's Rye or it could be Ray. Washington Jefferson statues need to come down. CNN's Angela Ray called for statues of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson to come down. So the Washington Monument and the Jefferson Memorial need to be knocked down, basically. Rice said American history is not all glory. Well, I tell you what, we don't have a whole lot of time. Let me read this one part. I want to get down to her actual statement that she made. Basically, what she said, I'm going to break it down a little bit. She said here one thing. To me, I don't care if it's George Washington statue or Thomas Jefferson. They all need to come down. So my first question to her, so should we take DNA samples? How far do you want to carry this? Do you want to carry it and take DNA samples, and anyone who has DNA of someone who owned slaves in the past, should we hunt them down? Should they be hunted down? Because they're responsible, right? I mean, it's just crazy. But here's what her remarks are, and I may not have time to go through it all. But she said here, we have to get to the heart of the problem here. The heart is the way many of us were taught American history. American history is not all glorious. She talks about this guy, but she said she disagreed with one of her panelists. She says, George Washington was a slave owner. No dispute there. But I guess nothing else matters. Do you understand history? You want to tell history? This is something that's never really taught at all. Do you realize, you can look this up yourself, the names, I can't pull them off the top of my head, but the first actual dispute, I believe it was in the Virginia colonies, between a person that owned an indentured servant, which were basically like slaves, that left and went and got employed by someone else before meeting their contract. So basically this person went before a judge and said, look, I still own the rights to that dude over there. And the judge ruled in his favor. Do you know that the owner of the indentured servant was black? Guess what color the owner of the indentured servant was? Black. I'm not trying to say that negates anything, slave ownership. It's just crazy. And if you think about it, and I've talked about this, and I just popped in my head, does the term buffalo soldiers mean anything to you? The buffalo soldiers were black soldiers after the Civil War in the Union Army that went out west and systematically killed Native Americans, men, women. I mean, they were known for their ruthlessness. They were black. So does that mean that now Native Americans should destroy Martin Luther King statue? Because their people were killed en masse by black Americans. I'm just saying, history is complicated. You can't simplify it so much, man. But she said, Rye went on to say, we need to call slave owners out for what they are. Whether we think they were protecting American freedom or not, he wasn't, talking about Washington, protecting my freedoms. I wasn't someone, my ancestors weren't deemed human beings. Hey, I'm with you on that. The whole thing of slavery is a taint to this country, is a stain that we're still trying to overcome. It is an original sin. I'm with you on that. But I don't think that we have to destroy the country to make it better. Matter of fact, I think it'll make it worse for all of us, including black people. To me, I don't care if it's George Washington's statue or Thomas Jefferson. They all need to come down. There is a way to recognize. So if we undid every single thing, and this is probably controversial for me to say it, but I'm a history major, so I understand some of this stuff. If you want to go back and undo every injustice, if we could wave a wand and do away with every single injustice that led to the slave trade, to slaves in America and everything else, do you know there'd be very few actual black people in this country? And I'm not justifying slavery, but the people, who do you think sold blacks in Africa to white slave traders? It was other blacks. This is just a fact. Tribes, literally, they could not, the slave trade would never have happened to the extent it had without the help of Africans in Africa. Just like the conquest of North and South America by Europeans would not have happened without the aid of Native Americans. It's just fact. I mean, it's just, people have fought people. Man's inhumanity to man is without, it's just terrible. But I went on to say, I'm not feeding into white supremacy. I'm calling out white supremacy for what it is. And sometimes what it is, he's talking about this John guy that was her blind spot, sometimes acknowledging the country was built on a violent past. Hey, she's saying we're not acknowledging. This is what gets me. She says we're not acknowledging what happened. We fought a civil war over it, ma'am. I think we've acknowledged it pretty heavy. And then she goes on and on and on. And this is the part I'll close with. She said, we definitely need to learn about it. And I agree, we need to learn about our history, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's so we don't repeat it, because that's a very strong point. But then she makes something that invalidates everything she says. She said, we are close to repeating it right now. Wow. So we're close to repeating slavery in this country right now. Maybe if we give out to, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, maybe, because I don't trust them for a free. But this is the problem. If you honestly believe that we're on the verge of reinstituting black slavery in America right now, there's really no starting point for us to have a conversation, because it's just not true. So, I don't know what it may be. Maybe there is no hope. Because I don't see how you deal with a person that can look at themselves in a mirror and say that they honestly believe we're on the verge of slavery once again. It's hard for me to believe. All right, we only got about 2 minutes left, and I want to bring some good news to you. It's coming to Tulsa, Oklahoma, man, June 19th. Trump to resume campaign rallies with June 19th event. Man, you can't keep a good man down. I love what they say right here. It says, Trump announced on Wednesday that his reelection campaign would be holding a rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma, June 19th, and would also be holding rallies in Florida, Texas, and Arizona, as well as an event in North Carolina. It looks like, and this is a side note, it looks like that Jacksonville, Florida may actually get the Republican National Convention. Amen if that happens, man. Sorry for North Carolina's luck, but man, I'd love to have it here. Did you hear what our governor, Ron DeSantis, said about it? He said, hey, I'm a Republican, but I would welcome the Democratic convention to Florida because of the economic impact. There's the difference right there between Democrats and Republicans. They're looking out for all their citizens' best interests, but expect a big, big pushback on this, on these rallies, because they don't want it to happen. They're going to try to use everything possible to keep it from happening. So there's going to be court cases and all that about Trump rallies, but it's time for us to rise and stand up. We as Americans, I'll close with this, we have to decide, put Donald Trump aside for a minute. We have to decide what kind of country we want to live in. A constitutional republic, as flawed as we may be, or letting, thugs take over 7-block area of the United States of America. I mean, we just got some decisions to make. Hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, share it with others. I'll continue to pray for your family. You continue to please pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great nation, the United States of America. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.